Is God still good if He doesn't fix it? In 2014, my husband Scott and I were given the devastating diagnosis that I had lupus. Our world had just changed. We didn't know what this disease was, had never heard of it. All we knew was I had been sick. The doctor walked in the room and said, "You have lupus," and walked it back out. 2 months later, I was begging my husband to call 911 because I could not breathe. And the doctors had just told Scott 3 days before I was faking there was nothing wrong with me. So Scott didn't want to call 911. But he finally did. And the ambulance drivers were his buddy from high school, so they all had a nice reunion while I'm sitting on the gurney trying to breathe. And when we got to the hospital, the nurse took my oxygen level, looked at Scott, took my oxygen level, looked at Scott, left the room. The doctor came in, took my oxygen level, looked at Scott, took it again, and then said, "Call your children. She's not going to live through the night." My oxygen level was in the low 50s, but I was faking. My disease is called SLE lupus, and basically, my immune system sees every organ in my body as a disease, and it's trying to kill it. On a personal level, I do not recommend this disease. It's not a lot of fun. When you are given a devastating diagnosis, you have two choices. You can run to God, or you can run from God. And I had been running from God. In the worst night, Scott chose to run to God. I was supposed to be released from the hospital, and that day we learned I had a hole in my colon, and they told Scott that I would not live through the surgery. He went into that corner of that waiting room, terrified by himself, and he prayed. And he prayed for me through the entire surgery. At one point, my son told me that my mom ran up to him and told him to stop praying. God wasn't there, and we needed to plan a funeral. Do you know what it's like to know your own mother gave up on you? But Scott chose to run to God. He had the faith. Now, I lived through that surgery, and it was not easy. My days are not easy. I live most days in a devastating pain and fatigue. But God's good. I'm here. I have got to learn through this challenge that God is good. My husband is wonderful. I had children that would drop a hat to come help me. And I have a passion to teach people that you can learn from tragedy. You have a choice. God gives you the choice. Me or run from me. My worst night, I was home alone, and Scott would have to leave me alone, and I fell out of a chair. There's a reason my mother did not call me Grace. And I'm laying on this floor, and it's cold, and I can't even remember Scott's phone number, and I'm crying, and I'm begging God, why did you do this to me? Why did you give me this disease? Why did you make me so weak? Why don't you just kill me? And I threw my Bible. My Bible landed on 2 Chronicles. And do you know what happens in 2nd Chronicles? Jehoshaphat and Judah are going to go up against the Ammonites and the Moabites and the Mennonites, all of them. And they're scared and they're calling to God. We can't win. The battle's too big. We're not big enough. We can't handle it. And God tells them, don't worry. I got you. And the thing I remember from those verses is God says, the battle is not yours, but God's. God's got this. And He's going to allow trials in our life. It's what we do with it. Are we going to run to God? Or are we going to run from God? Because God has a plan. It's not our plan. It's not the way we want to fix it. It's not the way we want it to go. But He has a plan. And He knew that Jehoshaphat and all of Judah and all of Jerusalem, He had their back. He had them. He's got my back. And a lot of people tell me, why doesn't your God heal you? Oh, but He is going to heal me. Our healing is not God's healing. And on the glorious day I'm healed, I will wake up at the feet of Jesus. I'm so excited for that day. There's a song by Mercy Me that says, is Happy Dance, and I've instructed my son to play it at my funeral, and I know it's going to make a lot of people angry because it's an upbeat song, but it's just like, happy dance, happy dance, happy dance. And I love that song. In Laura Story's book, When God Doesn't Fix It, she says, the myth is trials are a curse. The truth is, trial is an opportunity. So what are you going to do with your opportunity? Are you going to run from God? Or are you going to run to God? Because through that trial, God is going to use you. Even if it's just for one person to increase your faith. That's what I'm going to allow Him to do. There's another thing that encourages me. In Max Lucado's study, You'll Get Through This, he says, you'll get through this. It won't be painless. It won't be quick. But God will use this mess for good. In the meantime, don't be foolish or naive. But don't despair either. With God's help, you'll get through this. And Scott and I, we get through this. And let me tell you another little tidbit. If it was not for lupus, I'm not sure Scott and I would still be married. We were on 2 different paths, 2 different planes, not even sure we liked each other. But marriage has trials, and we have always chosen to fight the trials together. So is God still good if He doesn't fix it? He's always fixing it. He's just not fixing it the way you want. But I still can't wait for that ultimate day of healing. So just remember, go with grace. God's got you. He's got all of us.